Hey everybody, it's kind of an impromptu video for Tales from the Video Store. As a lot of you might know, Rob Reiner and his wife were found dead the other day. By the time I get this out, it might be a couple days old. Being new to YouTube and having a channel that talks about movies, I was like, well, I guess I can put my 2 cents in and talk about a few of his movies, and do it now while it's timely. I did a little research on his movies because the news is showing a lot of the stuff that he did, and Rob Reiner was kind of on fire from 84 to 94, about 10 years. He continued to direct movies all the way up till here recently. And he starred in a few shows too, usually as a background or side character. He mostly directed movies. And I guess we'll start off with his 1984 directorial debut, which was Spinal Tap. I like hard rock, heavy metal, hair metal. Spinal Tap's a little before my time. I didn't watch it till later on in life. Probably when the DVD come out is when I finally watched it. It's a pretty good movie. Rob Reiner's like a documentarian. He's following around, the fake band Spinal Tap. What I remember about Spinal Tap was the Stonehenge, where theirs was, I believe, extremely small, which is a spoof of a Black Sabbath concert where they messed up their measurements and their Stonehenge was super huge. And I believe the Black Sabbath inspiration they got was post-Ozzy. I'd have to do a little more research, but I know that's what inspired that little movie scene. And of course the amps that turn up to 11, him trying to explain it, they can be the same loudness at 10, and the guy's like, well, this one goes to 11. That's what I remember most about Spinal Tap. And of course, Michael McKean, he would go on to be in Airheads. He was the radio station manager. That's probably where I know him most, besides being on Laverne and Shirley. He was one of the greasers. So next, and also Fran Drescher was in Spinal Tap also. His next movie that I'd like to talk about, 1986, Stephen King's Stand By Me. This movie starred River Phoenix, Will Wheaton, Jerry O'Connell, and Corey Feldman. The kids go on a quest to find a dead body, through their travels. It's a pretty intense movie for, I watched it as a kid, and in this movie, all the kids, they're cussing and trash talking. Kiefer Sutherland, is going to slit the boy's throat, and Will Wheaton's, packing a gun, and he's going to, threaten to shoot him. Of course, a lot of Stephen King stories dealing with little kids usually ends up like that, but what I remember most, of course, is the leeches, where they go through the little swamp or whatever, and Will Wheaton finds that leech on his privates and passes out. That's what I remember most about Stand By Me. Stand By Me, it's an excellent movie. The next movie he directed I want to talk about is Princess Bride. Princess Bride was like one of the first spoof type movies I ever watched, where it's aware of itself, kind of making fun of itself. Fred Savage is in it, Wonder Years. You got Columbo reading them the story. Inigo Montoya, when the guy killed my dad, I'm going to get you. Carrie Ewells is in it. Andre the Giant. For wrestling being such a looked down upon sport, or whatever you want to call it, these wrestlers were all over the place back in the day. But that's really my only memories of Princess Bride. I don't watch it a whole bunch. I know everybody loves that movie. It kind of, I don't know, like Monty Python. I'm not a huge fan of that stuff either. I'll watch it, but that's about what I got for Princess Bride. It's another one of those movies that was, rented out all the time in the video store. It was always out. He also went on to do When Harry Met Sally, Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan. I haven't really watched that movie. I might have watched it once, like in the 2000s. Everybody remembers the fake orgasm scene, and watching TV, the news, the woman who was like, well, I'll have what she's having was actually Rob Reiner's mother. It's probably a pretty good movie. I might watch it here coming up, but it's something I really haven't watched more than one time, so I can't really comment too much about it. He also in '90 did Misery, Stephen King's Misery. That's a good horror movie, or whatever. Everybody remembers his ankles getting broke, when she's got him tied to that bed, and he sneaks out and accidentally turns one of her little glass penguins the wrong way, and she knows he got up, and he finally gets away. A lot of people seen Misery too. It's a classic. He also did A Few Good Men in '92. Tom Cruise, Kevin Bacon, Jack Nicholson. It's like all these movies have, a scene that's, iconic. Spinal Tap has the amp turn into 11. Well, Stand By Me, to me, is the Leeches on the Privates. That's like a coming of age type show. Princess Bride, the Inigo Montoya guy. Harry Met Sally, the fake orgasm. Misery, the ankles getting broke. And A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth, in the courtroom scene. And that's another movie I've probably watched maybe once, twice. I'll probably go back and watch it again. And the only other thing I want to say about Rob Reiner, he's an actor in The Wolf of Wall Street also, and he's talking to Leonardo DiCaprio and all them guys about the $26,000 of taking people out for dinner, and they're all laughing. This reminds me of a story that happened to me personally. A company I worked for one time, they gave us a credit card to go get what we want to eat, and there was groups of people, and they tried to be like, oh, just keep it to about $15 a person. Well, we didn't know. There was only 3 of us in this group, and one of my cohorts, he was the one that ordered the food, so I didn't know. I told him what I wanted, he ordered what he wanted, and then our third guy, he got what he wanted. I was in charge of this credit card. It was from HR. We had completed a task on time, and that was our reward, was a free meal. So when I go to pick it up, I tell them the name, and they're like, oh, that'll be, it was like almost $200 for just 3 of us. My eyes kind of got big. I was like, excuse me? And she was like, yeah, here's the total. And I'm looking at the receipt, and I'm just shaking my head, but it's too late. So I went ahead and paid for it, on the company's dime. There was like sides of fried cheesecake, a side of steak. It was a Asian fusion type place. So I get back, I eat my meal. I've got like 2 pieces of fried cheesecake extra that they ordered for me. I didn't ask for any of this stuff. So, the next day it's time for me to turn the receipt in with the credit card. And, the HR guy's looking at me, and he's like, how did y'all spend, 100 and whatever dollars on just 3 of you guys? And the first thing I thought of in my mind was this scene of Wolf from Wall Street where, $26,000 in sides? So I started kind of chuckling, and of course he wasn't happy at all. He was very disappointed in me because I'm the one in charge of the card, even though I was super busy and I had to let my cohort order our food. But anyway, like I said, it's a short story. I'm trying to be timely with this. Rob Reiner, grand slam of movies he directed. You know, he starred in a few things. Of course, I just want to talk about the few movies that would affect me that I watched growing up. You know, all these VHSs were in the video store. They stayed out quite a bit. You know, of course, I didn't keep my eye on Harry Met Sally or stuff like that, because I would never try to take it home as a younger person. But, you know, Princess Bride was always gone. A lot. Stand By Me was always gone. And I really don't believe we had Spinal Tap in the video store back in the day. So, anyway, you know, that's my thoughts on Rob Reiner's passing. I'm sure the news will uncover what's happening. I guess they think his son killed him. And that's another thing. I would hate to think that I got successful in life and provided my kids with, you know, an upper tier life that, you know, a common person like, you know, me or you know, probably can't provide to our kids, you know, because I don't have millions of dollars in the bank or thousands or whatever it may be. I'd hate to think that I got to a point where I could provide for my kids and take care of them to a certain extent, and one of them, you know, take me out because the news is reporting that it's probably his son that killed him and his wife. I don't know if the woman he's married to is the actual mother to that boy or if it was from a previous relationship. It's just sad all the way around. Like I said, this is a little quick video on my thoughts on Rob Reiner and all the movies that he did. You know, I could discuss the stuff later on, but I don't have a lot of, you know, experience with those movies. And these early ones from the 80s going into the 90s, you know, was such a strong run of movies he directed. So, you know, I hate to hear that he, you know, went out on bad terms. You know, nobody wants to die unnatural. And apparently that's what's happened with Rob Reiner and his wife. So, anyway, until next time.